Hello world, Dano here, stacking paper as always, and today we have my favorite kind of video. We're tier ranking every single book I read this year. So I got a grand total of 30 books this year. It's not bad. Could be better, but I'll take it. You know, for someone that works a full-time job, it's kind of fucking hard, but I think I didn't do too bad. I'm going to try to do these in the order in which I read them. I might fuck that order up a little bit, but I'll do my best. But overall, a pretty solid reading year. Mostly good stuff. Some kind of mid stuff, and then one horrendous book, which we'll get to. But we're going to start off with More Than Human by Theodore Sturgeon. Kind of an odd book. I think it's really beautifully written. It just kind of does tend to meander a bit, but I think the overall message is really good. It is a fix-up novel, so it's 3 short stories or 3 novellas kind of stitched together to be a novel. So I do give it a little bit of slack in that regard, but overall pretty good. I think we're gonna set that right there in B tier. I think that's more than fair for More Than Human. More than fair for More Than Human. Next, what's the next one? I think it was Roadside Picnic. It was Roadside Picnic. Now this book needs to be talked about way more. This is one of the most original science fiction books I've ever read in my life. I can't even describe it because it almost doesn't even feel like science fiction. It feels more of just a story of just a broken man trying his best to make it through a really bleak world and support his family. But it's just brilliant. It's first contact without any contact. There's no aliens. It's just the remnants of the shit they left behind, and the people who dare to go and try to scour from it at risk of their own lives. But fuck, this book is brilliant. This is easy S tier. We got a few S tiers this year. Not many, but only the good ones. I'm trying my best to be more what's the word? Critical. I don't want my A and S tier to be too bogged down, but who knows? If I just have a good year, I have a good year, but this is a pretty balanced year overall. So, all right, next, we have a reread, a good old reread. The Bad Beginning and The Reptile Room. I'm going to do those in a row. So this is a series of unfortunate events. If you haven't heard of it, get out from under the rock that you've been under, or I guess you're not a millennial who used to go to the Scholastic book fairs, because this shit was all the rage back then. I'm deciding to reread the entire series because I never finished it. I think I only got to book 10. So I'm slowly but surely trucking my way through the series. I've kind of hit a bit of a block. I should have read The Miserable Mill by now, but cut me some slack. The Bad Beginning, though, is contrary to the title of a book, is actually a very good beginning. It establishes the characters really quickly. These books are immaculately paced. I'll give them that. They move at a very good clip, and it's just classic. It's not anything super incredible, but it establishes the tropes. It gets through them, and it's funny along the way. It's well written, so this will be a B. Reptile Room, however, honestly was kind of disappointed by it. It's a fine book. It really meanders, and the climax is not very satisfactory, if I'm going to be honest. It's kind of this weird pseudo judge jury situation going on, and it's very hard to suspend my disbelief, especially with the whole car crash. Anyway, I'm getting into spoilers, but it was just all right. It's going to be a C tier, and I guess I should I explain my tiers? I think they're pretty self-explanatory. D for dog shit. C for Okay, I can't do that for all the letters, but C is the most variable tier because there's some books that I actually like that I'll still put in C just because I can't ignore their flaws. You know, they might have really high highs, but the holes are there. B is just good. B is just a solid book. I enjoyed it, and there's not very many gripes I have about it. A is a fantastic book. Like A and S tier are kind of like the only difference between them is S is like one of the best books I've ever read. That's where I save S tier for just like an S tier book is an A tier book that somehow has transcended A tier for whatever reason. But yeah, S and A are just all around fantastic books. B is good. C can either be kind of shitty but just passable to I liked it but there's a lot of problems, and then D is just do not read. All right, next up we have I keep missing my point. Oh, I guess we'll just do all the series of unfortunate events. Wide Window. This is the best of the three, for sure, so far at least. It kind of does a similar thing to the first book. I mean, the first three books in general all actually kind of follow the exact same plot structure. Orphans get picked up by a new caretaker. Shit goes wrong. By the end, they get moved to another caretaker, and that's just that's just the setup. And I guess that is the same thing for every book, but after the third book, it kind of goes into, it's not necessarily just regular people taking care of them, like they go work for a mill and like all this other shit. So I kind of consider the first three a trilogy in a weird way because of how, you know, connected they are. But Wide Window is, it feels like the most put together of the first three. Like the plot is great. The characters are funny and interesting, and the setting is, I mean, all the settings are dreary, but this one's dreary in this like kind of like wet, like New England kind of style of dreary, which, I mean, I don't know. I've always been pretty partial to it. Yeah. Next up, we have Blood Music by Greg Bear. Now, if anyone out there is watching Pluribus, very good show. Blood Music is essentially that. A guy in a lab makes these microscopic engineers, he calls them, his little engineers, and they're intelligent life, but at the microscopic level. And instead of destroying it when he gets kicked out of the lab, he decides to inject it into his own blood to preserve it. And yeah, just absolute hijinks ensue, and the entire world gets fucked. But it's a pretty well written book, and I think I really liked the first half, but it does kind of lose me near the end. I think it's a fine ending, but it wasn't as satisfactory as I wanted it to be, I guess. But I can't fault it because for the majority of the book, I was super locked in and it was really interesting. I'm still gonna give it B, but where in the B tier? Is it better than More Than You? I think it's a little bit better than. Nah, I'll put it right there. I think that's a good spot for it. All right, on to some Sword and Sorcery. I finally read some Elric, and I'm sorry for everybody who's super big fans of Elric. I know he's iconic. I think he's really... Michael Moorcock is an extremely important writer, and I understand, but man, this shit drags. Like, the Elric books in general, I'm going to feel the same way about the next book I put up here. They're so terribly paced, and you'd think they wouldn't be because they're not very long books, but man, do they just trudge through the mud. I'll still put it above Reptile Room, but yeah, I just wish he would get the fuck on with it. Because the high moments are cool. Like, it's just some like badass sword and sorcery, but it's just getting to those moments. He loves repeating himself. Michael Moorcock loves repeating himself, and it gets It gets to be a little much. I kind of feel the same thing about Fortunes of the Pearl. Fortunes of the Pearl is kind of worse, actually, to be honest. I'll take Elric of Melniboné over Fortress of the Pearl any day. In fact, I'll probably put it there because it's yikes, man. It just really, really takes its sweet fucking time. To the better version, or is he? Knight of the Swords, Corum. First Corum book, far superior to Elric. I'm sorry to the Elric fans. We got our first A tier here. Here's a book that doesn't waste its fucking time, right? It gets to the point, and not just that, but I like the fact that Corum is more, I don't want to say he's necessarily more competent, but he isn't as like disabled in the same way that Elric is. He's actually quite powerful, and as soon as he gets his hand, he's just he's on another level, and he's doing some crazy shit. So I do like the power of the magic that Moorcock decided to give Corum in this book. And just in general, I kind of like the more sci fantasy vibe that it has as compared to Elric. I'll just do all three of them, actually. Where's the other two? It's King, and that's Queen. Although I will say King of the Swords and Queen of the Swords is not nearly as good as Knight. I think these are more C tiers because they do kind of run into the issue of kind of meandering a bit. I'll still put it above Elric. Both of these, actually. Queen, I liked a little bit more than King. King, the reason I didn't like King of the Swords is because it doesn't... The ending was really disappointing. The final villain is just defeated so easily. And I'm like, really, man? Like, didn't put up much of a fight. The Queen of Swords has an interesting kind of multi-dimensional clash element that I think is cool, but they both meander a lot more than the first one does. So I do dock them significantly for that. Especially because at the end of the day, man, I'm just not a huge fan of Moorcock's writing. It's just, he fucking repeats himself all the time, and when he decides to be flowery with the prose, it's just, I don't know, I just find it's not done as well. Moorcock, much better as an editor than a writer. Like, I think some of the stuff he's edited from New Worlds is, like, amazing, but his writing... kind of hit and miss for me. Okay, where are we now? Dying Inside. Here's a banger. First Robert Silverberg I read. Good old Bobby Silverberg. He is an absolutely incredible writer. I don't want to say the pinnacle of the new wave of science fiction, but definitely near the forefront, because he's got a really prolific bibliography, and at least from what I've heard and read reviews of, a lot of it is very good, especially his like early mid-70s stuff, which is exactly where Dying Inside fits in. Dying Inside is the story of a telepath who's had these powers since he was a kid, and he uses them in I guess squandering ways. He could have done so much more with his life, essentially, but he hasn't. And now he's an older guy. He's in his 40s, and he spends his days writing people's essays for them. Like, he uses his powers to just write these really good essays, like, and people pay him for it. But his powers are slowly fading, and he's kind of realizing that, like, this is all he really has, and he hasn't really done much with his life. And it's just this realization of, like, oh, I'm nothing. I haven't accomplished anything. I had all these gifts given to me, and I just completely did nothing with it. It's very depressing, but it is such a poignant story, I guess you could say, that it's very relatable. Kind of small-scale storytelling, but really well written, and really, really interesting concepts. Solid A tier. Honestly, can't wait to read more Silverberg. I'm going to try to read at least 2 more Silverbergs this year because They're just fantastic. Okay, Life, the Universe, and Everything, the third Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy book. It's been a huge gap since I read the two before this. I really, really, really liked Restaurant at the End of the Universe. I think I gave that like an S. But these books are just fun. You're not supposed to take them too seriously, I think. Even though they do touch on some like pretty big themes when it comes to like, religion and like the universe. The book's called Life, the Universe, and Everything. It should touch on stuff like that. But also it's just goofy, It's just a fun goofy little read, and it just it's very uplifting, and it just kind of makes you happy, and for that's good enough. That's good enough for A tier for me, honestly. Can't recommend it enough. Now, the only Sanderson I read this year. Shocker, I know. And it wasn't a very good one, unfortunately. It was, again, I also might just not be the target demographic for this book because it's a romance, but I don't know if that's necessarily true. I've liked certain romances in the past, but it's just, I guess, few and far between. But this one it's a Cosmere book, so it does tie into the whole lore of the Cosmere. There is some like Easter egg drops, which are always cool, but I try not to put that in to not give the score weight, because I just have to look at the book by itself, like how does it function as a singular novel. And this one, it just didn't do it for me. I mean, like, the concept was interesting, but honestly, I kind of picked up on the whole, like, gotcha moment. It wasn't really a gotcha moment for me. It was very obvious. And the romance was just, I don't know. It was just too teenagey, YA kind of lovey-dovey shit that was just not for me. The magic system was also kind of, like, one side of it was kind of interesting, but the other side was just, I don't know, kind of boring for a Sanderson perspective. It's definitely a C, but where in C tier? I guess I liked it a little better than Reptile Room, but I'll take Elric over Yumi for sure. Okay, next. I guess we'll do our Sherlocks now. So we have, where are you? Study in Scarlet, Sign of the Four, Hound of the Baskervilles, and then I guess this one as well. So we'll do the novels first. So Study in Scarlet, the very first Sherlock novel. Pretty cool. However, it has this insane vibe switch midway through the book. And I think both Study in Scarlet and Sign of the Four both have this issue where the first half of the book is all about Sherlock and Watson trying to figure shit out, and that stuff's really interesting. I love that. Loving them deduce things, that's awesome. But then either with Study in Scarlet, it's like half the book. With Sign of the Four, it's only like the last quarter. It just completely pivots to a different character and tells a totally different story, basically about how, I guess, the antagonists did what they did. But it's just, it's not Sherlock, It's not why I'm reading this book. It's kind of like, it switches to like an action adventure thriller about some random character that I don't give a fuck about. So it's like, why am I spending a third to half of the runtime of the book reading about something I don't give a shit about? So I feel like these first two novels, he hadn't really figured out the Sherlock character yet. Which makes sense because after this, he went on to write the two short story collections, and then he wrote Hound of the Baskervilles, and Hound of the Baskervilles is a lot better than these two. So for Study in Scarlet, I'm going to put it probably maybe above the Elrics, but below the Corum. And then Sign of the Four is a little bit better. I'll put Sign of the Four maybe above the Corums, because it's only like a little bit of the book where it kind of sidetracks, whereas Study in Scarlet, literally half the novel is not about Sherlock and Watson. And it's like, what the fuck am I reading, man? However, Hound of the Baskervilles, now, here's a fucking book, man. Here's a book where He knows all the characters. He knows the story beats. He sticks to the point, and it also has the best vibe. Like, it's so creepy. They're not in the city. They go off to some like marsh, I guess you should call it, and it's just about this creepy big fucking dog that's murdering people, and it's so supernatural that you're like, okay, what's the like? You don't even know what the answer to the story is going to be until the very, very end. Like, it really keeps you, I guess, on the edge of your seat for like the whole runtime of the novel. Also, all the characters in this one are just superb, and you think that a character might not mean anything, but every single character in this novel absolutely adds up to something. And it just, I think it's the quintessential Sherlock from what I've read so far. This is an easy A tier. Ooh, do I like it more than Dying Inside? That's tough. No, I think I'll put it right there. But there's a Sherlock that I can recommend without even thinking. Like, it's fucking brilliant. Fucking brilliant. All right, what do we got next? Now we get the first book club read of the year. So I do have a little book club that I run with some of my friends, and this was the first book, Sirens of Titan by Kurt Vonnegut. I've only read Slaughterhouse-5, other than this, obviously, before this book. Slaughterhouse-5 is a fucking incredible novel. Now that I think about my last tier list, I should have put it way higher. Slaughterhouse-5 is brilliant. Sirens of Titan, also brilliant, but I don't think to the same level as Slaughterhouse, but it is like, it's much more expansive. Like, characters really travel around to like different planets, and it has a narrative that is more, how do I say, it's not like unstuck in time, but also it kind of is, you know. It does have a similar mechanic to it, where one of the main characters is literally becomes like a light rays and is constantly bouncing between, you know, different spaces and different times. So it does have a little bit of that, but it's much more like this kind of big like puppet show where all the characters are doing things and they don't realize that they're being manipulated by this greater power. And it's so interesting. It's such a fucking weird book, but I have to give credit where credit's due. It's an incredible book. Definitely an A tier book for sure. Ooh, I think I have to put it at the top of A for now. It really is that, because also on top of the fact that it's got great plot, great pace, great concepts, it's also funny as shit. Like, for the time, like, this book was published in like 58 or 59. It's before 1960, and somehow he's like saying things that are just like so off the wall for his time. Like, people did not speak like this in the late 50s, and he was just, I don't know, he was just ahead of the curve. He's always been ahead of the curve. Oh, I also realized I totally forgot to do this Sherlock. So, The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. This is a short story collection. So after he wrote these first two novels, he then started writing short stories that were published in the Strand magazine in the late 1800s. This would have been crazy to even say that, late 1800s. And then at the end of the year, they collect them into like a collected edition. This is the most famous of his anthologies just because it's the first one. It's probably not the best one. I'm thinking Memoirs of Sherlock Holmes might be a little better because it introduces Moriarty. But this one here, it's kind of a mixed bag. There's some really good stories in here, but there's also some pretty forgettable ones. So when I average it out, I like it more than I have more stories in here that I like than don't like. So I'm going to put it in B, probably just below Blood Music. I think right there is good. Definitely worth reading though. It's a classic. So like there's some stories in there like what is it? Scandal in Bohemia. Scandal in Bohemia is one of the best Sherlock stories. So it's worth reading just for that one alone. Next, second book club read, Siddhartha by Herman Hesse. Siddhartha is it's very short. I wouldn't even consider it a novel. It's pretty much a novella more than a novel. Um, it's not about the Buddha. It's both not about the Buddha and about the Buddha at the same time. Because it's about a guy who lives at the same time as the Buddha, also named Siddhartha, who is kind of going on his own spiritual journey, and he actually meets the Buddha at one point. It's kind of like, you know what this is? This is Buddhist Ben-Hur. That's what this novel is. And it's kind of like, it reads like scripture at some times, but also like a novel at other times. It's very free flowing, and you kind of don't really know where it's ever really leading you to. But by the end of the novel, you do feel very how do you say, like, uplifted. It's very it's very transcendental. I guess that sounds so pretentious, but it's just God, I'm doing a terrible job of explaining this novel, but it's a really hard one to explain. It's just about this guy's spiritual journey and what he learns along the way and what he imparts to the reader. And it's absolutely worth the reading. It's very short too. Like, you could read this in a sitting if you were really, really committed. Definitely A tier. I think I'll put it right. Oops. Yeah. Yeah, right there's good. I think that's a perfect spot for Siddhartha. Okay, third book club read, Arthur C. Clarke's 2001 A Space Odyssey. Famously made into a film by Stanley Kubrick. Well, I shouldn't even say made into a film, because both the book and the movie were made at the exact same time, which is very strange. I think it's the only example I can think of that's like that. But Arthur C. Clarke helped work on the screenplay for the movie, and Kubrick also gave Clarke input on the book. So it's kind of like they influenced each other, which is really interesting. It's really good. It's got, I guess, good themes, and it really imparts the beauty of space on the reader. Like, the way that Clarke describes just like stars and suns, especially those last few chapters where it starts getting really trippy. If you've watched the movie, you have an idea, but the book goes way deeper into it. That stuff's really beautiful. My only gripes about it really are the pacing could be kind of so-so, particularly because the characters aren't that interesting, because this is kind of a hallmark of hard science fiction, and that's that the characters never really matter, I guess. The characters are more of a vehicle to tell the story than actual characters in their own right. But definitely still worth it. It's just if you really like space and you really like learning about fucking stars and shit, this book rocks. B tier. I don't know if I liked it more or less than More Than Human. That's a tough one. I actually think I like More Than Human a little bit more, so I think I'll just put it definitely top of B. It's really just the characters. Like, these kind of have the opposite problem. More Than Human, the characters are amazing, but the pacing and the narrative is kind of wonky. Here, the pacing and the narrative is pretty good, but the characters are just boring as shit. So, I guess, like, take from that what you will. Okay, Will of the Many. Big chunker, definitely the longest book I read this year. It's epic fantasy, it's Roman themed. It's also kind of sci-fantasy, which is kind of cool. It's got all these little sci-fi elements here and there that I think are going to be delved into a lot more in the second book. But this book, honestly, it's nothing special in the sense that there's nothing new from it. It's extremely tropey. It's, you got the magic school. You got the Forsaken Prince who's trying to take revenge against the big bad fucking empire that took over his homeland. You got, a little bit of teenage romance thrown in there. You got like a Hunger Games-y setup of kids fighting each other to become the top of the class. You know, like all these extreme tropey elements. You got like gladiator pits, like that shit's awesome. But it just does the tropes so well that it kind of doesn't matter, you know? Like, it didn't bother me that it was as tropey as it was because it was just so well executed and so well written that I have to give it the recommend. I was gonna say it's S tier, but I'm gonna be honest, it just barely misses S tier, but I'm gonna put it at the top of A for sure. This is going forward definitely gonna be some quintessential fantasy. All right, now for the fucking weirdest book I read this year. I can't even begin to try to describe this book. So, Barry Malzberg, very niche science fiction author. Shout out to Bookpilled for putting me on to Barry Malzberg. This guy is, pardon my French, he's fucked in the head. His books are, I can't even say books, I've only read this one, but if they're all in this kind of vein, they start off with a setup that sounds pretty normal or pretty like classic for sci-fi. So for this, in this case, Tactics of Conquest, it's about these two guys who are having this chess match over the fate of the universe. Basically, if one guy wins, all the demons and devils will get extinguished and the universe will be pure and benevolent. And if the other guy wins, chaos will reign. All the good in the universe will go out and it'll just be fucking psychotic shit everywhere. That's what it says the story's about. But as you read the story, you realize that that's absolutely not what it's about. And in fact, that premise is just this weird overlay to the complexities of the broken mind of the protagonist, because it's very much an unreliable, the most unreliable narrator you're going to get. And it is just such a fucking strange journey. But fuck if it isn't interesting. Like, this book, more than any of the other books I read this year, with the exception of one other that I'm going to get to, stuck with me. Like, I have not stopped thinking about this book since I've read it. And I just want to read more Malzberg now to just see where it goes. I have a couple more on my shelf that hopefully I'll get to this year. But, man, it is so unique and absurd. I want to put it in S tier, but it's also one of those books that I can't recommend to anybody. Because it's like, if I recommend this to someone and they read it, I feel like they're going to turn around and be like, dude, you need to go like see somebody. Because it's that off the fucking wall. So I'll put it in A, but I think I'll put it smack dab in the middle of the A. But holy shit. I will say, if you find yourself bored with a lot of science fiction, read this. Read this, and it will show you that at least science fiction can go to these fucking truly bizarre places. Speaking of which, Solaris. Not even gonna waste fucking time. Solaris is absolutely the best book I read this year. Also, big shocker, but Solaris was my book club pick for the first cycle, so, you know, obviously I have impeccable taste. But this novel, man, also famously made into a film, 2 films actually, which I haven't watched, and I'm actually kind of happy. I'll say, if you haven't watched Solaris, or if you plan on reading Solaris and you haven't watched it, read the book first. Read the book first, because then at least you won't get any... Because I also haven't read or haven't watched the films, but from what I can gather, they don't fully encapsulate what the book is trying to do. And now that I've read the book, I know that there's no way it can, because nothing can prepare you for this novel. Like, absolutely nothing. It's about a guy who is a scientist, and he goes to a space station on this planet called Solaris. And Solaris is mostly water. It's almost all water. But this water is like an alien life form that scientists for decades have been studying and trying to figure out exactly what's going on. And as soon as the scientist lands, there's 2 other scientists on this research station. And as soon as he lands, he already gets the feeling that it's just bizarre. Weird shit is happening around the ship. And then, lo and behold, I guess this is... I don't want to spoil. Okay, you know what? Fuck it. I don't want to spoil anything. I don't want to spoil anything. I'm going to try my best to explain this without spoiling it. It is about human emotion and interaction. This is a very emotionally heavy book. And how truly we can never understand like a truly alien life form. And how that alien life form in turn is trying to understand us. And how our emotions and feelings and thoughts all culminate in this weird science fiction fucking hodgepodge. It is incredible. I can't fucking describe how good this book is. It can also get really heavy on the exposition, which for a lot of people, they'll start tuning the fuck out, because there's a couple chapters in here that are like 20 or 30 pages long, and it's just lore dump. Like, it almost feels like a fantasy novel in how much lore there is for this planet, because there's a library where whenever you go there, you learn more about all the other scientists that have come to this planet before and what they've learned. And it's just trying to put this intricate puzzle together to get to the end and figure out what this alien is. And whether they do or not, it's not for me to say, but the journey is absolutely incredible. Hands down the best book I read this year. Like, fucking bar none. This book was something else. Martian Chronicles by Ray Bradbury. I wish I liked this book more than I did. It's very beautifully written. I'll give it that. And it's also a fix-up novel, so it's a lot of short stories kind of meshed together. And there is some like really cool moments, some really cool segments. Like the House of Usher segment is really cool, and you know, even like the weird alien technology they have is really cool. But I feel like it kind of gets lost in the sauce a little bit. So, I mean, I did feel like it was a C, but I think it actually is a little bit better than that. Simply because the prose is beautiful. Like, Ray Bradbury is like an amazing writer, and there's another book you can see right around here where I feel like his writing comes through in a much clearer and more beautiful way. It's just, the Martian Chronicles just feels like, it feels unfinished. I can't even like mince words about that. But I still think it's good. I'll put it probably near the bottom B here. Yeah, I think that's about fine. But it just, I wasn't sure like what it was trying to tell me, you know, by the end of it. I was like, what did I just read? Kind of thing. Okay, now we get to the only D tier pick of the year. Death of the Author by Nnedi Okorafor. Holy crap, what a horrendous book. Like, truly D for dog shit. It's about this science fiction author. It's kind of like seems like an autobiography in a weird way of the author herself, who doesn't have use of her legs and writes a science fiction novel out of nowhere, just on a whim, in like when she's down in the dumps, and this novel just takes over the world and everyone around the world fucking loves it. But it's just, oh my goodness, it's so fucking boring. It's so boring. It's not well written at all. Like, you can say it's about a modern writing style, but no, man, I've read modern writing that is much better than this. Here's a perfect example of that. And here's another pretty good example of that. So it's not well written. The pacing's terrible. It's also very I don't know if pedantic is the right word, but you feel like you're being talked down to as someone who likes science fiction, almost, you know? And didn't like that feeling at all. Also, it didn't end in a very interesting way either. It just seems like a lot of the problems that were introduced in this book are just so like, it's a lot of first world problems, man. It's a lot of like, oh my goodness, but I'm so fragile. Fuck this book. Honestly, if anybody wants this book for free, I will give it to you. You know, slide in the DMs. I'll hand deliver this book to you to get it out of my house. Sorry to my friend this was his book club pick for the year, but it just wasn't it, man. Okie dokie. Next Ray Bradbury, a much better Bradbury than Barsham Chronicles, and that's Something Wicked This Way Comes. It's spooky carnival, you know, a spooky carnival comes through town, and these two kids get swept up in it and are trying their best to survive the night because these carnies have fucking powers and are not only insanely creepy, but just like they can fuck you up. Like there's a lot of scenes that are like not so much body horror, but like psychological horror. Like they get in your head and they, you know, twist you. It's brilliant, and it's so beautifully written. The writing in this book is like truly something else. It's very well paced. The characters are amazing. The two main protagonists, these two best friends who are trying their best, and you know, one friend is very like kind of naive and just like a good guy, and the other one is a little more conniving, and how the carnival plays on both their emotions and how they play them against each other. This book is fucking beautiful. Definitely, I almost want to give it S, but I think it's the very top of A. I'm gonna put it right there, just above Will of the Many. It's a classic for a reason. It's a perfect October read for anyone who wants to be a little creeped out. But it's wholesome, you know. It has like a really wholesome ending. Super worth it. Brave New World. Crazy that I got this far in life without reading Brave New World. This was another book club pick, and this book is mind-boggling when you put together that it was written in the fucking 1930s, like the early 1930s, early mid-1930s. It is so ahead of the curve. It is about this dystopian world where people are bred to be only so smart or only so stupid in order to fit into a caste system where everyone in society just like, it just works. Even though there's functionally slaves that exist, but they don't even know that they're slaves because they're engineered to be stupid, you know? Everyone is also on drugs all the time. There's a magic wonder drug called Soma that makes you feel super good all the time and no side effects. And so they use that to just control society. But the thing is, on paper, it's a functioning, happy society. It's so bizarre, but oh my goodness, the writing is incredible. Aldous Huxley his prose is fucking so sharp. The concepts are crazy, and above it all, something I was so not expecting from this book, it is fucking funny. There are lines from this book that I still remember because they just made me laugh out loud, and I'm like, how is someone from the 30s telling jokes that still resonate with people in the fucking 2020s? You know, it is, yeah, that's an S tier book. I will say, I think it's a little strange that a lot of people read this in high school, though, because I think a lot of high schoolers will just hate it, and also they don't have enough life experience to like truly understand a lot of the concepts that are going on. I'm very happy I read it when I did, but absolutely essential read. Okay, we're getting down to it. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Ken Casey. I forget how to pronounce his last name. A beatnik classic made into another famous film that I still haven't seen. Maybe I'll watch it today. Who knows? Um, this was a book club pick, and it was all right. I'm gonna be honest. I think Cuckoo's Nest was just all right. Maybe I went in with a little bit higher expectations than I should have. It was really well written. I'll give it that. I think the prose is better than pretty much everything else in the C tier that I'm gonna put it. Maybe it's at the bottom of B actually. But it does tend to meander. There's a couple segments that just drag the fuck on. And then there's even some stuff that just hasn't aged that well. But I guess, it's hard to blame books that were written in like the fucking 50s and 60s to be like, aligned with the times. But there is some stuff that's a little tougher to read. You know what? I'm gonna bump it up a bit. I'm gonna put it at the bottom. That almost feels too low though. Like I legitimately feel bad because it's a really well written book. It just didn't. I guess it just didn't connect with me in the way that I really wanted it to. But you know what? Nah. It's the bottom of B. Sorry, Ken, but that's where it is. It's I think it's a good book. I just think it didn't click with me. I think if this book really clicks with you, it can be a lot higher. But for me, it's just the bottom of B. And the last book of the year, The Forever War by Joe Haldeman. Another Dano pick for the book club. And what do you know? Another S tier novel. Putting it right there. The Forever War is basically a science fiction version of the Vietnam War, because Joe Haldeman wrote this book as soon as he got back from Vietnam. And it focuses around the concept of time dilation. The idea that once you go really far in space, if you come back, even though only a few years has passed for you prospectively, it's been decades from where you left. So he's kind of expounding on a lot of the feelings of Vietnam War veterans that went to fight in Vietnam only to come back to America, and it's a completely different place than they remember. But this takes this and ratchets it to the extreme, because every single time he comes back from a tour, it's been 30 years, and then 100 years, and then 200 years, and like the amount that culture and like sexuality and even math has changed in that time, because he's a physicist. He's a really smart guy. But by the time he comes back from his second tour, physics aren't even understood the same way that they were when he got his master's in physics, All of his friends and family are dead, all of even like sexually how culture is like completely shifts. By the end of the book, he's like the only straight guy that exists anymore. So it can be really bizarre, but it's a really moving novel while also having really good action sequences, because it's military sci-fi. So there's some kick-ass action on top of the fact that there's some amazing character dynamics, and it's also really well paced. Like, it's not a long book, and it's segmented up every time. He does a really good job of every single time he goes to a different, I guess, time period. He doesn't stay there too long, because as soon as you start getting a little bit of setting fatigue and it starts getting boring, he switches to another, off on another tour, time for more time dilation. So it's like he never gives you enough time to get bored of what he's doing. It's just, an immaculate book, honestly. But yeah, that's it. That's my tier list for the year. Take with it what you will. I hope some people watch this and, maybe take some recommendations and read them and tell me about it. But, yep. Until next time, until next year, I guess I should say, take it easy.